This time, I would like to speak some principles of anarchy. There could be many, but among others, the first principle is the principle of self-help. In the Bible, it says, the heaven helps those who help themselves. Obviously, the God does not help you unless you are trying. So, in case of emergency, let's assume that your countries are at the contingency situation. Which country would run to you to help you? Perhaps no country, right? No country would help unless you and the other country share a common or fundamental interests. In other words, it is only you that you can help yourself. In other words, do not rely on other countries. So about a century ago, the English Sir Palmerston said that the Great Britain has no eternal friends nor eternal enemies. It has only eternal national interests. So he continued that today's friend could be tomorrow's enemy, and today's enemy could be tomorrow's friend. So the principle of self-help is one of the key principles in the state of anarchy. Now, second principle is security dilemma. I want to listen carefully because it is a little complicated. It's a difficult concept to understand. Let's assume that there are two neighboring countries and they compete each other. Neighboring countries. There are many similar cases in the world. Two neighboring countries. Probably inter-Korean relations, or India and Pakistan, or Iran and Iraq, and some other countries, you name it. And the problem is this. In order to secure their security, they build up defense capabilities against each other. But problem is this. National security is a negative value. Have you heard about it? A negative value? What is a negative value? In order to answer that question, let's talk about positive value first. With the positive value, the more you have, the better you are, better off. For example, perhaps money. The more money you have, I think you're better off, right? Or properties, or quality clothes, or something like that. The more you have, you are better off, right? Certainly, that's a positive value. What about negative value? The less you have, and the better you are. Can you give me some examples of negative value? What about the disease or illness? If you don't have any disease or illness, you're fine, you're good, right? That's a negative value. The less you have, the better you are. That's a negative value. Since the national security means the absence of the evil of insecurity. In other words, the absence of insecurity. Insecurity, threat. So absence of threat. So security means the absence of threat. Thus, how much security is enough security? is not certain all the time. Now, country A feels a insecurity vis-a-vis country B. So it continuously increased defense expenditure. But the thing is that they don't know how much we spend provides the enough security against the country B. Also, country A's security invites the reaction from the country B. So country A's security means the country B's insecurity, because security is a negative value, also very subjective. Again, let me repeat it again. National security is a negative value. So the less you have, the better you are. Also, security means the absence of threat. So how much security is enough security is not always certain, and also it is very subjective. So it depends upon the policymakers that make security decisions vis-a-vis its neighboring country. So security dilemma in political science is a situation which actions taken by states to increase its own security cause reactions from the other states. So country A's security invites the country B's reaction. So my security means his insecurity, which in turn lead to decrease rather than increase in the original state's security. For this reason, the primary goal of states is to maximize its own security. Obviously, this leads to the continuous arms race. Continuous arms race. Think about the examples of the superpower rivalry during the Cold War period and inter-Korean relations. The endless arms race. The US used to have more than 10,000 nuclear warheads, and former Soviet Union owned about 12,000 nuclear warheads. With those capacities, they could have destroyed the whole Earth, the planet Earth, more than 100 times. But they never satisfied. They felt threatened from the other. So that led to the continuous and endless arms race between the two. The next example could be the two Korean relations too. The Republic of Korea spends more than 30 times more in their defense than North Korea. But many South Koreans do not feel secured because of the North Korean military threat. Obviously, North Korea has WMD against South Korea. WMD means weapons of massive destruction, including the nuclear weapons, also biochemical weapons too. So South Korea spends 30 times more to defense expenditure than North Korea. Still, many South Koreans feel insecure vis-a-vis a North Korean threat. So this situation might lead to the continuous arms race between the two parts. Again, the United States and the former Soviet Union's bilateral tension during the Cold War period, and the contemporary inter-Korean relations. These are the two best examples of security dilemma. Of course, we can find some other countries too. Relations between India and Pakistan, same thing, and also Iran and Iraq. Let me introduce another prominent scholar's definition of security, Professor Arnold Wolfers. He said that security in objective sense measures the absence of threats in order to acquire national goals. The absence of threat in objective sense. So objectively, everybody recognizes and agrees that there's no threat for our goals. But at the same time, security has a subjective means too. It means that security means the absence of fear. That's very subjective, isn't it? And such values will be attacked. So country A has a certain policy goals, certain values, and it has some sense of the feeling that those values would not be attacked. In other words, there's no fear in order to achieve those values, the absence of fear. So the security has two different meanings, in subjective sense, also objective sense. Obviously, these two notions lead to the security dilemma. That is the second principle. The final principle of anarchy is that each state is the final judge of its own interest. Each state has every right to determine or choose its national interests, also means to achieve them. So each state has the choice, make an alliance with other country or stronger country with the policy of alliance, or make an equidistance between the two strong powers. So equidistance diplomacy between the US and China, or equidistance diplomacy between the US and Russia, or equidistance diplomacy between China and Russia. So each country has every right to determine its own policies or its own strategies to survive or make development or progress with certain policy options, alliance or equidistance or balancing. So finally, each state is the final judge and the final decision in order to maximize its own interests with various policies.